Russia renews its firm attitude towards the Syrian crisis, and China affirms the importance of Al-Ibrahimi's visit, which seeks to reach a solution. Army units continue to pursue armed terrorist groups in different provinces in the country. Sandy superstorm disrupts daily life in the U.S. and leaves behind huge destruction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our news for today. Chinese Foreign Minister Yang Jiechi has praised the UN envoy to Syria Al-Ibrahimi's efforts, which he said would contribute to enhancing understanding and cooperation for reaching an appropriate settlement to the crisis in the country. Following his meeting with Al-Ibrahimi, Yang said his country accorded extreme interest in the UN envoy's visit, hoping viewpoints would continue to be deeply exchanged with him on the Syrian crisis. On his part, Al-Ibrahimi hoped for an active Chinese role in this respect. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Gennady Gatilov has said the Russian stand towards the crisis in Syria has not changed. Gatilov told news media MEM today that all the upcoming steps concerning Syria will be linked to the decisions included in the final statement of the Geneva Conference, which are still vital and constitute a basis for a political settlement in the country. Gatilov expressed his country's readiness to work with its partners, including the USA, and with the participation of the UN envoy to Syria Al-Ibrahimi. Gatilov added that Al-Ibrahimi did not discuss with the Russian Foreign Ministry officials the possibility of working out a new plan to settle the crisis in Syria, and did not raise any specific idea during his presence in Moscow. The spokesman of the Foreign and Expatriates Ministry, Dr. Jihad Maqdisi, yesterday said the recurrent statements of the Turkish Foreign Minister Davutoglu reconfirm that he still insists on dragging the Turkish people further into the Syrian crisis due to the Turkish government's policy, which is no longer acceptable as it continues to adopt stands that contradict the historical and fraternal ties between the Syrian and Turkish peoples. In a statement, Dr. Al-Maqdisi added that Davutoglu continues his attitude of going ahead of himself and rejecting any critical revision of his destructive policy, which proved its failure on the ground, while publicly adopting a stand that targets the security and stability of a close neighbor, Syria. It has been clear to all observers, Dr. Maqdisi said, that the Turkish and Gulf countries did not abide by the decision to render successful the halt of military operations, a decision to which the Syrian leadership has committed itself. Therefore, they are responsible for the ongoing Syrian bloodshed. He affirmed that Syria would continue to be keen on the historical and fraternal relations between the Syrian and Turkish peoples, which could never be harmed by any government at all. An armed terrorist group today detonated an explosive device they had put in a garbage bag in a crowded street in Sayyida Zainab in Damascus. Several people were killed and wounded. Our army units continue to pursue terrorists who keep attacking citizens, hospitals, and public and private properties in Damascus suburbs. They clashed with a terrorist group in Dawar al-Thanawiya and Harasta, killing all the group's members, including terrorist Bassam Aloush, who was a leader of the so-called the Capital's Shield. They also killed terrorists who had infiltrated into Al-Khazan province and Harasta National Hospital, where they wreaked havoc. Another army unit seized a reconnaissance wires network planted by terrorists on the rooftops of houses in Zamalka to facilitate their movement through tunnels and alleys in the town. Al-Hama, an army unit, has intercepted an armed terrorist group that was riding Doshka-equipped cars and tried to attack the inhabitants of Al-Jadid and Al-Aziziyah in Al-Ghab province and the governorate suburbs, inflicting heavy losses on them. First Lieutenant Hussein Khalifa, who has deserted his post at the Interior Ministry and later returned, reveals that he has decided to come back after coming to a realization that Syria is being exposed to an international conspiracy.
Returning to his homeland, First Lieutenant Hussein Khalifa, an officer who deserted his post at the Interior Ministry, has recognized that there is no dignity without one's homeland. Officer Khalifa, in an interview with the Syrian TV, pointed out that the government of Recep Tayyip Erdogan is offering weapons and money to the armed terrorist groups in order to infiltrate into Syria and perpetrate massacres against the Syrian people. He added that in Turkey they reside in an area which is 20 kilometers far from Antioch, adding that the concepts which the armed groups believe in are takfiri ones and depend on fatwas that come from the Gulf countries. He made it clear that the orders were given to those groups from Istanbul Council as their goals were not overthrowing the regime but defeating the Syrian state and destroying its army. He went on to say that the Syrians in the Turkish camps suffer from humiliation and disgrace and that they were treated in an inhuman way. He affirmed that psychological pressures and wars of rumors were being practiced on the deserted officers in Turkey to frighten them and prevent them from returning to Syria. He stressed that while he was in Turkey, he was experiencing an internal conflict, so he decided to return to Syria as there is no dignity for anyone who lives outside his own homeland.
In occupied Palestine, Israeli warships continue to bombard Gaza Strip for the 10th consecutive day. An Israeli raid targeted early this morning Palestinian houses and properties, causing huge material damages to their farms. At least 9 Palestinians were killed and 15 others wounded since the beginning of the Israeli aggression last week. Palestinian resistance men retaliated by shelling Israeli settlements, scoring direct hits. On the West Bank, occupation authorities arrested 11 Palestinians in Hebron, Jenin, Nablus, and occupied Jerusalem. The Iranian land and air forces today started maneuvers west of the country. According to the Land Force Assistant Commander, Brigadier Ali Mehrabi, the maneuvers, dubbed Khaybar, aim at raising the level of preparedness and the combat spirit of the soldiers and implementing the military plans on the ground. He referred to the participation of the air forces and helicopters in transporting parachutists and equipment within the military drills carried out that aim at implementing the rapid deterrence plans in the face of foreign threats. Finally, Sandy superstorm has killed 40 people in the United States. So far as 22 people were killed in New York City and 6 others died in New Jersey. Across the U.S. Northeast, at least 8 million homes and businesses are without power, while in Lower Manhattan, 250,000 residents remained without power after a transformer explosion at a Con Edison substation, with total damage estimated at between $10 to $20 billion. President Barack Obama, who has suspended his election campaign, is due to visit affected areas in New Jersey. The storm is still causing severe disruption after moving inland. With this, we end our news bulletin for today. For more information about Syria and the region, you can visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Up next, the latest business and market news with Nariman after the break.